Yeah. I tell everybody, hunt smarter, not harder.
That's it.
You know, just really, I mean, it's, do your intel, know where the deer are at. And, you know, and another thing that, and I'm not trying to be a product whore, but, I don't know if anybody uses the moon guide. You can see the dial back here, but this thing that talks about the red moon, if you know how to use it, and
So
they have the app now, which is really easy. But this is
educate us on that thing, Ben. We don't know anything about it. I mean, we know of it. We don't know how to use it.
Yeah. Well, basically the red moon only hits, a certain amount of times. And to ask me the whole technical side of it, as far as like what is exactly the red moon, it's just more or less basically a certain time period when the moon's gravitational force is a whole lot different than like other times of moon times. Like, there's fishing times and hunting times apps or whatever. The red moon is just a little bit different. And I can't just give away the secret, but long story short.
Is it literally, it looks red? Like when you look at the red moon, it's a red. That's why it's called that?
Not necessarily. No, it's just the Indians basically like call it blood moon.
Okay.
Like they had better success. They even themselves noticed the pattern. And, so anyways, the moon guide the dial or the app will kind of steer you in that direction. And I plan my hunts now more, even with this, there's a trick. Moon is peaking as far as the peak times are within 2 hours of daylight or dark. Those are the best days to hunt, even on the red moon. And if I've got a deer doing something and I know where he's at, I look at that moon guide and I can try to pinpoint. And if I can get the right wind on any of those situations, I typically kill him.
So is the moon guide take into account any factors besides literally that moon calendar? Because can you just Google the red moon, like a red moon calendar? Can you just find that online?
Mm-mm.
You can't.
No, because not everybody else calls it the red moon. This is the moon guide is who, Jeff Murray started it. Adam Hayes ended up buying it.
Okay.
From it. Jeff passed away. Yep. But Adam ended up buying it. Guy that has Team 200.
Yep.
And Adam, has kept it going, and it's really good, man. And like the app is awesome because it has a lot of cool features on it, as far as a journaling. And in that journal, you can mark down, like when you got a picture of a specific buck, you can download the picture to it.
Yeah.
And then it'll tell you everything, barometer, wind, everything that was on that day. And then like you can develop a pattern with the deer as you keep getting more journal entries with that deer. And if you go back and start looking at things, sometimes something will pop right out at you. You're like, oh.
Yeah. How frequent do you get red moons, like in a given season or a month?
You'll get 2 different periods a month, typically.
That's one more than my wife. But
yeah.
As
long as she's on the pill.
Well, yeah. Will you take the moon into account over some of these other things? I mean, like I know a bunch of us are looking at weather patterns or just trail camera information. How would you say that the moon?
I don't only just hunt on a red moon, but I'm just saying, like,
sure,
it's a trump card that really will, weather and other things are still a huge factor. I mean, if it's 120 degrees and you're in Kansas in November, everything's going to suck. Yep. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter.
That was this last season.
Yes.
For us.
So like, even if it's like a huge cold front's coming and it's not a red moon, or you got a cold front pattern hitting and, those deer can move at any point. You still have to, I shouldn't say weather trumps the moon, but it definitely has a huge factor also. So, I mean, between weather and moon, both, some guys will tell you they don't see any difference in the moon. Well, then my answer is you don't freaking hunt and you don't pay attention because there's no way that it does. It does. I mean, it absolutely affects the deer.
Yeah.
Absolutely 100% affects the deer. And, and it's not always just the red, but the moon period,
We're kind of, it's been like a side project for us to try to get to the bottom of it.
Well, I mean, just from my background and in the biology side, like I tend to lean on science a lot, you know, and so there has been some studies around this thing, and frankly, they haven't seen any patterns. Now, what I assume they haven't looked at is, you know, the red moon in particular versus moon cycles in general, right? Because I think what they've looked at is just like, hey, here's all the moon cycles, you know, waning crescent, blah, 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 full new moons. So, you know.
There's been, 2 or 3 of them now. We've talked to some deer biologists from Wisconsin, Mississippi.
And Pennsylvania did it too.
And Pennsylvania. So all 3 of those guys have done deer studies as far as like just basically buck movement associated with the moon. And their findings. And see, Ben, I'm coming observationally, like it was also my opinion, maybe not from a rut standpoint, but from like from a feeding movement, pattern, like day to nighttime movement. I would have said, yeah, it seems like there's some correlation. Their findings, again, I haven't read the studies and read the paper, but they say they can't find a correlation. Basically,
I guarantee if we brought this up, if we looked at it from a red moon specific approach, not just like the moon phases, but a red moon specific approach.
I feel like we asked Bronson at least.
I highly doubt he looked. That's what I'm saying is we asked Bronson, say, hey man, here's red moon dates. Can we do analysis around these specific dates? He would.
We should.
Well, and here's the other thing too, is that you ever been driving down the road one day and you're like, it's middle of the afternoon and you're like, why are all these deer?
Yes.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then you look in the sky and the moon is already rising.
Yep.
I mean, I see that all the time.
Yeah, Ben rising. Yeah, I know. I agree. In fact, and I don't know what it was last night. We didn't really have any big weather fronts. I guess we kind of had a little one pushing.
It is weird, dude. That's the one thing that's kind of keeping me in the moon conversation is I can't explain some of these different days where I'm like, well, I just don't understand why
I've got
15 deer out in that field.
I've got several pictures last night of fully loaded fields of deer fairly early.
What's the date today?
August 3rd.
3rd.
Red moon last night.
Was there?
Yep.
There you go.
Hey, I was just saying. I do. I have several pictures. I mean, I'm talking fully loaded fields last night.
I can't say I noticed any difference, but I mean that's just how my trail cameras are set up.
Yeah, so like
mineral and stuff.
Right. Yeah, I've one. It's the buckhole in my buckhole.
It's weird that like there is this unexplained, unless you account for the moon guide. You know, there's these days where you see all these deer, and for these biologists to say that there is no correlation is odd. It's like, okay, well, if not,
I find that too, because I've never heard one biologist study say that they think the moon affects them. But even my own observation of my own trail cameras and sitting in a stand, there is absolutely better hunting when the moon is rising or falling within those 2-hour periods. And then when the red moon hits, I'll tell you one animal that helps me a lot.
They're always there.
I do not get pictures of bobcats in daylight until the red moon.
Huh. And we should go back and look at what date did we get that bobcat down there in daylight? We should look at that.
I've got a bunch on camera.
What's the one down at on Bob's? There's a big cat.
That one down in the northwest.
I get all kinds of bobcats a lot of times at night. I'll get some sporadic in the day.
See if we can correlate.
But the red moon, definitely when I start getting bobcat pictures in daylight, and it won't be just one camera. It'll be different farms, I'll get bobcats, and it's red moon.
Wow. Interesting.
Well, it's something we'll have to download the app. There's a lot of people, mainly because we've had several of these science-based projects come on, and they're like, yeah, we don't see anything. And again, I think a lot of that's from moon cycles more than it is a specific, like, this is designated
to these biologists. Like Ben is one of my main arguments is to be like, well,
100%.
Okay, I can't, like, I'm not a scientist. I agree. Maybe you can't, there is no correlation.
Adam Hayes.
But have you seen Ben's wall? Like,
yep, multiple 200s.
It's pretty crazy. Yeah, it's crazy.
Adam Hayes, multiple 200s.
Sure.
Lots of booners. Like yeah, I don't know. I mean, it is.
I mean, me personally, dude, I'll live and die by it. I mean, like, it's, you know,
I know you do. And
Is
that is one of the major arguments. Like when we start looking at this, and again, I've always been on the skeptical side of it. Frankly, that's just because that's where my background's been and I'm looking at data. But I don't think anybody has probably looked directly at those red moon phases versus like, is there a difference between new moon and full moon? That's what I think a lot of these research projects are looking at. Is the actual phases of the moon, not just this is identified as the red moon. I'd really
love for somebody to explain to us like what the red moon is. Like
what's gravitational pull differences and stuff. That's the big thing.
Okay. How was it observed? Like, is it something you see visually, or how did they test that? How they know it's different?
I'm sure it's part of just the moon life cycle.
Well, I know, but how do they test it?
It is the red moon?
Yeah.
I'm sure it's probably qualifying some sort of distance to the Earth.
Is there some kind of mechanism that they're like, okay, this is showing us that that's a red moon right now?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure it exists. That's how the moon guide is calibrated.
Maybe we have to talk to Adam. He's the owner now.
Yeah. I mean, does Adam have a good understanding of like how the red moon, like?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's, he would, I imagine that, we could get him on here if you wanted to talk to him about it, or get us both on together,
Sure.
I mean,
we've talked to Adam before, not on the podcast, but
yeah, we've done things.
Yeah. I'd love to really know. I don't know what the word is, like astrologically, like literally what that means. Like what is the red moon?
We know.
I'll tell you, anybody that's out there that's listening, I mean, you should try it at least a year. Just go get the dang app and download.
I'm going to do it this year.
Yeah. Why not?
I'm going to try it this year.
It'll cost you a few bucks, but it is so worth it. And
you got a promo code?
What's that?
I said you got a promo code?
No. Well, no, I don't actually, but there is a thing in there where you say, where do you hear about it? And you have to click on, and obviously
we'll give you credit.
All right, Whitetail Edge, Ben Rising.
But there was a program just this weekend that we advertised that if you bought one moon guide, one dial, you got one free. He does run a lot of deals like that, but it's not super expensive. I can't remember. I think the app's like, is it $24 for the year? Maybe something like that.
I'll look at it. I'm going to download it right now. I think it'd be interesting to see a couple things. Number one, if we're hunting in correlation with that, and a lot of that just, I don't know if I'll necessarily change my hunting strategy, but if we are hunting in correlation in that, and then the other one is looking at trail camera data, which we've got all over the place.
I think it'd be a fun test for this year if we apply our current strategies or observations around weather, trail camera information and stuff. Because I think, Ben, is it fair to say that like you've been doing it for long enough that there may be some observational bias in that you're already trying to hunt by the red moon and we're not.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't always hunt by it, but I can just tell you so let's, for an example,
Did you find that bobcat picture?
No. I'm just downloading the moon guide now.
Okay.
I have a lot, so I know July 31st was a red moon too. And then into the first few days of August. But I got a picture of a deer the other night on a farm that I thought I pretty much knew every deer on it. Second night of the red moon, I get a daylight picture an hour before dark, hour and a half, of a deer I've never seen before. And he was a smoker. And I'm like, look at that.
All right.
And
I got
that stuff. And that same day I got a bobcat in the same plot.
Wow.
So it's just weird, how that, it would really be hard to convince me that it has no bearing.
Sure. Here, I want to do a test. So this buck over at, Jed Colwell.
Yeah.
Right. We got some cameras running over at Jed's, and I got a pretty nice buck showed up only one time, and it was broad daylight, which I think he was probably bedded right on this hillside. Can you check your red moon guide on June 28th? Well, I guess you said July 1st was a full red moon. So what does that mean?
That was July 31st. I don't know. I don't know if the dial I got here will go back that far.
7/28 is the date I'm looking at.
7/28 or 6/28?
7/28.
Oh, so that was right
like
before.
A week ago.
I think the 31st started it.
Well, I think it was. So it's typically.
It's a slimer.
This dial doesn't have July, but it starts it in August. So a red moon is typically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days typically. So the last 3 days that I have on here were August 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. So today's the last day of the red moon.
So it would have been the 28th.
20th, 30th, and 29th. So it would have been like the day before the red moon started, or right there.
So it's a 6-day cycle. So twice a month, you've got a 6-day cycle.
6 days.
Interesting.
There's 30.
Some days it's 5, some days it's 6. It just depends, but it's an average, you know.
There's 31 days in a month. 30 of them are the red moon. That's you're gonna
say
see
your chances are pretty good.
It will be interesting, man. I just download it's for anyone that's listening, and most of the people that listening know that I doubt moon phase pretty hard. It's $14.99 for the year for the first year. So like I'm gonna try it and see.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah,
I'm not afraid to try it.
Give it a test, because I think you'll see a difference. Like I try to actually plan my out of state stuff, you know, according to it.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you, man, because we talked about how you have to be very efficient at your hunting versus a lot of these guys. How do you, I mean, yeah, we'd all love to be the weather forecasters, you know, weeks or months in advance, but it's just not possible, you know. So what are you using to plan it? It's the red moon.
Yeah, I go by the moon guy.